Exposed, the haunted secrets of my sinister client's spine-chilling stories from the unknown. Jessica sliced through the whispering night, her heart racing as if echoing the tales of those despairing families nestled beneath the quiet facade of Willow Creek. Every knock at her door felt like an ominous harbinger, but nothing prepared her for the unsettling call she received that changed everything.
A family in crisis, they claimed.
Their voices trembled like autumn leaves caught in a chilling wind, sending shivers down her spine. Curiosity piqued, she traced her fingers along the edge of her desk. She had to help, yet something in the air crackled with foreboding the moment she stepped into their home. Palpable dread clung to her skin. Shadows stretched ominously in corners, thick with unspoken fears. It wasn't the barren walls or broken furniture that struck her, it was the unnerving quiet that filled the space, a silence heavy with whispered secrets and hidden truths. As her eyes adjusted, she caught sight of the family huddled together, their expressions flashing with silent terror. Fear, like a thick fog, enveloped her, and before long, the chilling sensation settled deep in her bones. They were not simply afraid, they were hiding something dark. Days passed like a daze, each encounter with the neighbors peeling back layers of normalcy, exposing eerie glimpses into a world she thought she'd known. A neighbor sharpening knives under the pale moonlight, another rushing to shut drapes as she walked by, and a child with darting eyes cast sideways with each frantic buzz of an invisible phone. Could they all be caught up in some terrible secret? Her gut twisted as the charm of the suburb turned grotesque, leaving her feeling hunted.
Were they watching her?
Late one night, amidst the scattered shadows, she found herself adrift in an old library, drawn to a tattered book neglected on a dusty shelf. Tales of ancient curses leapt to life before her eyes, each page spiraling her deeper into the darkness of Willow Creek. As past a town thriving on the very fabric of misdeeds and betrayals it concealed behind neat homes and nodding neighbors. The more she read, the more the chill crept beneath her skin.
Trapdoors of treachery lay waiting, each heartbeat echoing her growing dread. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow.
If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference.
Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from.
I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen.
Now let's continue.
As she delved further, the fabric of her reality began to unravel. Unexplainable happenings escalated, the phone calls from non-existent numbers, shadowy figures flickering at the edges of her vision. The threads connecting her clients began to intertwine, weaving a sinister tapestry that drew her further into their web. Dread tinged every breath she took. The very night she received the note slipped under her door, the world of Willow Creek transformed into a labyrinth of lies.
Stop digging where you don't belong.
The chilling warning felt like icy fingers wrapping around her throat. Who could she trust in a place where every smile could mask something darker? With every passing moment, reality twisted like the sounds of her neighbor's whispers. Time was a curious beast, and Jessica found herself wandering deeper into the morass of fear and uncertainty. The monster didn't lurk in the shadows, it wore the very faces she thought she knew. What had she stumbled into? Who would be next if she couldn't unravel the truth before it was too late? The air in Willow Creek thickened with malice as Jessica tiptoed closer to the truth, her instincts screaming louder than ever.
She replayed the warning in her mind, stop digging where you don't belong.
The words echoed like a sinister chant around her, reverberating off the walls of her quiet home.
What could happen if she ignored it?
Her nights grew restless, haunted by fragmented dreams, images of the family's hollowed eyes and shadows creeping around familiar corners. She brushed her hair back, trying to shake off the unease.
With apprehension, she reached for her phone, dialing the family's number once more.
It rang endlessly, a mocking reminder of the isolation that closed around her like a vice. In a fit of frustration, she grabbed her keys and left, determined to confront the darkness bubbling beneath the surface of Willow Creek. The streetlights flickered erratically, as if shying away from what lingered in the dark. Her heart raced, pounding in her chest like a frantic warning. She knew the family usually hunkered down at this time, fearful of whatever hauntings plagued them. Yet, this time, the night felt oddly still, a deceptive calm washing over the neighborhood.
As Jessica neared their home, the unmistakable feeling of being watched pricked at her senses.
The windows were pitch black, cloaked with heavy curtains. But something caught her eye. A flicker of movement in the edge of her vision. She turned sharply, only to find nothing, just the faintest sway of trees against the wind. A chill crept down her spine. She approached the door, raising her fist to knock and hesitating just short of the wood. Something within her said this wasn't a visit she was meant to make. But the gnawing curiosity drew her like a moth to flame. This time, she wouldn't back down. Olive green paint peeled in patches, revealing the wood beneath as she finally rapped her knuckles against the door. The echoes of her knocks shattered the silence. A moment passed, then another, and her heart thumped louder. What if they weren't home? Just then, a creaking sound pierced the air. Jessica turned to see the silhouette of a figure beyond the misty glass of the door. A flash of recognition ignited something inside her, but before she could register who it was, the door swung open, revealing the father, pale and gaunt, eyes wide with fear. "Jessica!" he gasped, pulling her inside with a firm, desperate grip. He slammed the door shut, heart pounding, breath quickening. "You shouldn't have come. What's going on?" "I've seen things. I feel watched," Jessica stammered, trying to make sense of the chaos flickering in his eyes. He glanced nervously towards the dark hallway. "It's not safe. You need to leave. No one should be looking for the truth here." The gravity of his words hung between them. She could smell something burning in the air, a choking blend of fear and paranoia. "What do you mean?" "I need to know." A loud crash from the back of the house interrupted her, breaking their tense moment. The father's face twisted in horror as he leaned towards her, glazed eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "It found you." Jessica's heart lurched. What had found her? An icy dread pooled in her stomach as she heard whispers behind the walls, soft yet clear, like a siren luring her deeper into the maw of the unknown. "Please, we have to leave," he repeated, pulling her towards the front door. But all she could hear was the escalating chorus of voices whispering her name. Driven by a mix of fear and resolve, Jessica knew this was just the beginning. In that moment, she realized they were all connected. Her journey was far from over. The darkness hung heavy in the air like an uninvited guest, and it was already circling back. What waited for her at the end of this twisted path? Would she embrace the hidden truths, or would they consume her whole? The father's grip tightened around Jessica's wrist as he dragged her away from the door, pulse racing faster than ever. The sound of smashed glass rippled through the house, echoing like a gunshot in her mind. Panic surged as the whispers grew louder, a cacophony urging her to listen, to understand. "Where do we go?" Jessica gasped, desperately scanning the dimly lit hallway around them. The air felt electric with fear as darkness coiled around every corner. All she could see were the shadows stretching and shifting, ever watchful, ever hungry. He hesitated, glancing back towards the hallway. "The basement. It's our only chance. We can stay hidden there." The mention of the basement sent a shiver down her spine. The last place any rational person would want to be, especially with whatever had been unleashed upon them. Yet, she didn't have a choice. She followed him, her heart thudding violently, each beat echoing her fear of the unknown. The father led her to a door at the end of the corridor. He fumbled with the knob, splintered wood crumbling and falling away like the barrier between them and the darkness. The world outside faded behind them as he motioned her in. The basement was cold, the kind of chill that gnaws at your bones. A single bulb flickered weakly, casting a sickly glow over damp concrete walls. Shadows danced menacingly across the floor, and Jessica swallowed hard, stepping deeper inside. Her mind raced with thoughts, the whispers, the urgency in his voice. It all made her head spin. "Why are we hiding?" she pressed, refusing to accept the silence that hung heavy in the air. "What did you mean when you said it found me?" As soon as she uttered the words, silence enveloped them. The father's eyes widened, and he dragged in a breath. "What's coming for you? It's always been here. It feeds on the curious. What about your family?" she blurted out, trying to push past the dread pooling in her chest. "You have to tell me what's going on. I can't just sit here in the dark." With trembling hands, he pulled out a piece of crumpled paper from his pocket, unfolding it slowly. It was a faded newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. The headline screamed at her, "Mysterious Disappearances in Willow Creek." It started long before we came here, he said, his voice barely a whisper as he pointed at the picture bounding in with darkness, the very house Jessica stood in. And whenever people dig too deep, they vanish. Something creaked in the corner of the basement, and her heart leapt into her throat. The shadows seemed to collapse inward, twitching like a living thing. She couldn't shake the feeling of eyes staring at her, watching, waiting. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice trembling. The father took a step towards her. "If we can unravel their ties, maybe, just maybe, we can break free from its hold." Suddenly, the whispers rose again, sharp and urgent. "Jessica, come to us." She looked around, desperate for clarity. There was a mistake, she wasn't supposed to get involved, but here she was, tangled in this nightmare. Panic surged as she grasped that by seeking the truth, she had invoked something more sinister than she intended. "It's here," he hissed, glancing at the shadows wreathing them. "We need to act, or we'll be swallowed whole." A crash echoed from above, reverberating through the walls. Jessica's breath caught as the shadows writhed closer. Whatever was out there was hunting, and it had locked onto her. With a surge of adrenaline, Jessica locked eyes with the father, determination igniting in her chest. "Then let us expose the truth. We can't let it win." "But what would that cost them?" Before she could express her mounting dread, the lights flickered violently, plunging them into darkness. The whispers crescendoed, an overwhelming tide that engulfed her entire being. "Jessica, come play." The darkness crept closer. Was that a smile in the shadows? A promise of what lay ahead? Her heart raced as the unseen force stirred, and in that instance, she knew the real terror awaited in the hidden corners of their quest for truth. Would they emerge unscathed, or be lost in the secrets of Willow Creek forever? The oppressive darkness pressed in around Jessica and her father, an almost tangible entity eager to suffocate them. The flickering bulb sputtered, the sound mixing with the rising whispers, each syllable like a cold finger trailing down her spine. "Stay close," her father murmured, his voice strained. Despite their proximity, there felt like an impossible distance between them, the unknown looming larger with each passing second. The shadows twisted in a way that wormed into her mind, making her question everything. Was it paranoia or something else? Something that had latched onto her very soul? She glanced at the newspaper clipping still clutched in her father's hand. The faded images seemed to shift as if alive. A sharp, jagged sound tore through the air above them, scraping, dragging, relentless. Jessica instinctively moved closer to her father, fear constricting her throat. "What do we do?" she whispered, trying to steady her voice. He reached out and gripped her shoulder, his eyes wide with urgency. "We need to find the source, the heart of it. If we can break its connection, we can save ourselves." "Isn't that risky?" she shot back, skepticism creeping into her panic. "What if we provoke it more?" But even as she spoke, she felt a strange pull toward the shadows. The whispers wrapped around her like a caress. "Jessica, stay with us," they beckoned, drawing her closer, promising secrets hidden just beyond the edge of the light. "No!" her father barked suddenly, jolting her from the trance. "We stay focused. We have to find the binding." His voice cracked slightly, revealing his own deep-rooted fear. He scanned the walls, staring at every crevice with a burning intensity. Another crash from above sent shards of dust raining down around them. Jessica's heart thundered in her chest as she caught a glimpse of something moving, something just outside their flickering light at the corner of her vision. Her breath hitched, and she strained to look. The shadows seemed to beg her to look further, to care more. "Over there." Jessica pointed to the far end of the basement, where the darkness pooled thicker. Her father hesitated, but she could see his resolve hardening. "Stay back," he commanded, stepping toward the billowing shadows. "If it's there, that's where we need to be." The hairs on Jessica's arms prickled, but she couldn't let fear win, not when she felt the whispers intensifying, growing more desperate. "Wait. What if we leave it alone?" she pleaded, doubt flooding her voice. "There is no going back," he replied, his features hardened, silhouetted against the dim light with a wild fervor in his eyes. "It finds us either way. We have to take control." A sudden flash of movement caught their eyes, a figure jutting out from the darkness, impossibly thin, like fingers reaching out to pull them in. Jessica's heart raced as she felt the cold shift in the air, a frigid breath sweeping over her face. Jessica, the voice was more insistent now. Come play, one whisper among many, but this one felt achingly familiar, like a forgotten memory clawing its way to the surface. Stop. She clawed at her ears, shaking her head vigorously. Don't listen. But the shadows coiled tighter, twisting with painful insistence, the fabric of reality stretching thin around them. Time, space, all laws blurred and cracked apart as the dread thickened like fog. It's too late, her father hissed, eyes flaring with panic. We have to act. Before Jessica could respond, shadows surged outwards, a black wave of chaos and despair. She felt her footing slip away, the basement floor crumbling as the whispers crescendoed to an unbearable roar. In an instant, she felt cold fingers wrap around her wrist, then nothing but darkness. As consciousness faded, a flicker of a thought sparked deep within her. Had she played into its hands? Had she crossed a boundary that couldn't be uncrossed? Just before the darkness fully consumed her, a new whisper floated to her ears, a single, jagged sentence. The truth lies in the heart of darkness. Are you ready to face it? And then silence. What would remain in the wake of that silence? Would they find truth or despair in the shadows? It took a moment for Jessica to reorient herself, the silence pressing down like a heavy fog. Boundless darkness engulfed her senses, each breath felt thick, laden with the scent of damp earth and rot. Panic surged within her as she realized she was not alone. She could feel the presence of something lurking just out of reach. Dad? The whisper emerged hoarse and trembling, swallowed by the vast emptiness. She strained to listen but heard only her own heartbeat, a frantic percussion against the consuming silence. Then came a shuddering breath, softly echoing around her, unnaturally close. Jessica, the voice sent shards of ice running through her veins. It wasn't her father. Get away from me! She shouted, forcing her voice out against the overwhelming dread. But inside, her mind raced. The darkness pulsed with life, as if responding to her fear, feeding off it like a monstrous parasite. A distant scraping filled the void, growing louder, reverberating through the air like a sickening drumbeat. It was followed by a soft, mocking laughter that danced along the edges of her consciousness. The whispers returned, more insistent now, threading through the silence, offering promises that twisted into threats. Jessica, we missed you, come play, stop. She screamed, pulling at her hair, desperate to silence those haunting calls. But silence seemed to mock her. The laughter swelled, filling her head, a cacophony of joy within the agony. She blinked against the darkness, willing her eyes to adjust. Shapes crept along the periphery, fleeting glimpses of indistinct figures sliding through the shadows. Were they real or mere figments of her terror? Adrenaline thrummed in her veins as she stumbled backward, feeling her way along the cold, damp wall. The whispers shifted, pivoting. Her father's voice broke through, wavering but alive. Jessica, can you hear me? Relief surged, instant but frail. Dad! She pressed her hands to the wall, grounding herself. Where are you? I'm here. Keep moving. His voice crackled, warped like a radio losing signal, but his urgency drove her onward. Each step felt like a perilous gamble in a game where the rules twisted and morphed. The darkness seemed to reach for her, fingers of shadow snaking at her heels. She dared to look back, dread pooling in her gut. There it was, a shape, amorphous yet decidedly human, emerging in the shadows. It wore a face, but one she didn't recognize, distorted and smeared, a grotesque mockery of humanity. Its mouth twisted in a smile that chilled her soul. Daddy, run, Jessica! Her father's voice pierced through the chaos, frantic and close. The sound ignited a spark of defiance in her chest. She couldn't allow the darkness to take her. Momentum renewed, she sprinted toward the voice, each pounding footfall accompanied by the derisive cackling from the thing in the shadows, echoing with a haunting familiarity. We'll find you, sweet girl. Then an abrupt halt. The ground beneath her feet changed, a soft carpet of moss absorbing her weight. A glimmer flickered ahead, the faintest hint of light, a beacon in the oppressive blackness. She squinted, pushing forward, heart hammering louder than the sinister laughter, desperate for a way out.
Jessica!
The voice grew clearer, breaking through as she broke into a small opening, illuminated by an ethereal glow. Dimly lit symbols lined the walls, strange and foreign, swirling in captivating patterns.
What is this place?
She whispered, an involuntary awe creeping through her shivers.
The glow pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat.
When she turned back, a gasp tore from her throat. The dark figure loomed close, its eyes glinting like tiny embers, burning with malevolence. The laughter erupted around her again, climactic and triumphant. Welcome home, Jessica. As panic seized her once more, she stumbled away from the light, feeling the shadows pull at her, tugging her back into the abyss from which she had just escaped.
Whatever you do, don't look back. But what if the truth waiting in the darkness was all she had left?
And so she stood at a precipice,
staring into the unknown, knowing that the only way forward was fraught with terror. Did she have the courage to turn and face what lingered just beyond the light? Jessica's pulse quickened as the shadows writhed around her, a living entity desperate to consume her.
Each whispered taunt sent a fresh chill down her spine, battling against the warmth of the light ahead.
She had to keep moving.
The glowing symbols on the walls danced and twisted, their meanings an enigma embedded in her mind like a riddle.
Were they warnings? Portents of doom?
Even in her enriched terror, she recognized their haunting beauty-frozen images of agony and sorrow, ancient warnings etched in her subconscious.
Stay away, they whispered. But how could she survive without knowing what stayed behind her?
Jessica, the voice of her father, trembled through the haze, wrapping around her heart like a vice.
Please, you have to find me.
It was a tether, pulling her back toward the darkness, yet she was afraid. With every passing moment, the shadows closed in on her, hungry for the warmth of her spirit.
Where are you?
She called back, desperation tinged with urgency.
Follow the light.
He insisted, his voice fading like static. She could almost hear the emotion crack in his words, a mixture of fear and hope that felt tangible, almost like a rope she could grasp.
Steeling herself, Jessica took another step forward into the ethereal glow.
This time, the laughter subsided, almost as if the darkness feared the light. A few more steps, and she stood in the radius of the pulsating glow, feeling a heat envelope her like a fragile blanket. But as she turned her back to the lurking shadows, a deep sense of dread cascaded through her.
It was a wrong choice, she could feel it.
The air thickened, the sensation of being watched clawed at her neck. Instinctively, she pivoted, casting a glance something urged her to see, and then she froze. The smile of the entity rippled into a horrifying grin, lips drawn back impossibly far on a pallid face that flickered between forms.
Sweet girl, it cooed, eyes like polished stones basking in malevolent delight.
The air shifted, thickening with its sinister promise.
You think you can escape? No, no, no.
The shadows lunged forward, hands reaching out, clawing to grab hold of her. She twisted, diving back into the light, which now flickered, as if unsure of its purpose. The symbols on the walls began to shift dramatically, their rhythmic pulses quickening as they mirrored her frantic breath.
Dad!
She cried out again, feeling the dread coiling tighter around her lungs.
Help me!
And then, just as abruptly, the laughter stopped.
Silence clawed through the vibrating atmosphere.
Jessica could only hear her own frantic breaths and the unnatural beating of her heart, drumming against her chest like a desperate plea.
The silence hung, heavy and suffocating.
Then, through the void, a shivering echo of her father's voice returned, not far away but mysteriously strained.
Jessica, it's coming, I can't hold it back, Dad. Please.
Fueled by a sudden, ferocious resolve, she moved into the swirling glow. Away from the sound of her father.
What if the darkness, that monstrous void, had woven its tendrils around him too?
As she pressed forward, the light flickered violently. The symbols darkened, their meanings twisting as if in rebellion against her presence. Paralyzed by fear, she watched as the shapes began to morph again, taking on tortured forms, faces and bodies forever locked in agony. Then she felt it. Cold and clammy fingers grazed her shoulder, sending her into a frenzy. She bolted, darting toward the pulsating light, only to trip over her own feet, tumbling face first onto the mossy ground.
Jessica!
A voice, clearer now, echoing through the turmoil, but it was not her father's. The pitch was wrong, echoing with deceptive familiarity.
"Join us, rest, it's better this way."
Something pressed against her back, a slimy warmth that coiled around her waist. Gasps clawed at her throat as she struggled to disentangle herself. The laughter fractured again, a chilling symphony.
"Help!"
She screamed, but the sound barely emerged from her lips. And then, she was enveloped in an explosion of darkness, as all at once the light flickered out, leaving her in a heavy, consuming silence once more, a silence that drummed with sinister promises. What would it take to save her father? But even that thought dissolved with the dark chuckle that lingered at the edges of her mind.
Come play forever. Jessica's heart raced.
She had to find a way. Something deep inside urged her not to succumb. But where would she find that strength, buried among shadows? Desperation gripped her as she pushed into the darkness once more.
Would she find the truth beneath the horror, or would she lose herself entirely to the promise?
And as she stepped into the unknown, she couldn't shake the question echoing through her mind like broken glass: what if the truth was worse than the terror itself? Jessica stumbled as she plunged into the inky void, her heart hammering within her chest like a frightened bird.
Every emotion spilled through her: fear, despair, and an overwhelming urge to survive.
A heavy weight surrounded her, thick as fog, stinging her skin and seeping into her lungs.
Was this what suffocation felt like?
Sound, once a chaotic symphony of laughter and taunts, became an oppressive silence. She felt the remnants of whispers curl around her, their chilling echo teasing her sanity. Forever the word coiled itself around her mind, wound tight, refusing to let go. It was a promise or a threat, she couldn't tell. With renewed determination, she slid her fingers against the slick surfaces, the texture clammy and repulsive. They traced symbols that sank deep into her flesh and spirit, and she could feel them igniting like fire beneath her skin. She recoiled, gasping, searching for any flicker of light. The light had to be there, it had to help her find him. Please, come on, she whispered to herself, forcing her feet to move. Blindly, she stumbled forward, not knowing where she was headed, yet feeling the heavier presence of the shadows behind her, urging her to stop.
As she walked, a low murmur filled the darkened space, resonating with a haunting familiarity. Jessica paused, straining to hear.
The words wrapped around her, seductive and sinister. "Come back, you're one of us now, be with us, Jessica, no." She cried out, the sound tearing through the silence with the force of her terror. Her voice shattered the air, and for a brief moment, she thought she heard something shift in the darkness, something large and menacing, as if it had been disturbed. She pressed on, resolute, but the ground beneath her feet began to shift. The moss thickened, pulling at her shoes, trying to keep her anchored in place. Panic surged through her veins. She fought against the insistent pull, muscles screaming with exertion, as a lurking presence drew closer. Her breath hitched as she remembered her father's voice, strained and desperate. "Jessica, it's coming." His words became her compass, guiding her deeper into the dark labyrinth. But something clawed at her mind, something she didn't want to acknowledge. The shadows around her whispered promises of safety, binding her in suffocating comfort. "You are not alone anymore, we can give you what he can't." The darkness closed in, a coiling serpent, suffocating and malicious. "Join us," they beckoned, their call almost maternal, wrapping around her psyche like a spider web. She felt the urge to yield, to let the shadows whisper sweet nothings until she forgot everything. No! The thought hung bright and clear within her chaos. She couldn't lose herself. She had to find her father. Had to bring him back. But another sound pulled her back, an unmistakable crack, like thunder. She spun around, heart in her throat. In the depths of the blackness, a silhouette began to take shape, swirling and coalescing, blurring the line between night and apparition. It grew larger, closer, forcing her to confront whatever horror lay ahead. "Jessica," the voice echoed, familiar yet twisted, trailing off into a low, menacing chuckle. It set her nerves ablaze, pushing her toward a quick decision. Was it her father? Or some dark trickery meant to ensnare her? She could either run toward it, or wait, pray it would reveal itself without consuming her whole. Everything inside her screamed to break away, to flee, but she was caught in the dark's irresistible grip. "I want to join you," she shouted defiantly, her voice stealing with resolve.
I will find him.
That determination fell thin as a reed, but it was all she had. The shadow advanced, its features sharpening a nightmarish visage that froze her to the spot. The gleaming eyes bore into her, dredging up every deep-seated fear she fought to contain. Then, just as she thought it would swallow her whole, it halted, lingering in anticipation, as if waiting for her next move. "Join us," it murmured again, the tone now laced with something even more sinister. "Or abandon him forever." Jessica's heart sank. The choice weighed heavy in her mind, as the shadows threatened to strangle her soul. Would she abandon her father to save herself, or risk it all to push back against the darkness? As the creature taunted her, she felt the ground beneath her feet tremble, an awakening of things long buried, an impending choice she never wanted to make. Where would this twisted path lead her? Hope rang hollow, but a sliver remained. Would she drive herself deeper into that cavern of despair, or would a flicker of courage shine through the chaos? Her breath quickened as she took a step forward, confronting the darkness head-on. But in doing so, she felt the chilling question pressing into her mind: if the shadows could devour her light, what was left to save her father? The blackness began to swirl around her, now reaching with desperate yearning. Just then, she froze. Was that a whisper of hope she heard, or an insidious snare waiting to pull her into its grasp? Jessica's breath hitched as she stared into the massive shadows that twisted before her. Each flicker of movement sent tendrils of cold dread creeping up her spine. The air became dense with the scent of damp earth and something else, something rancid, that knotted her stomach. "Join us," the entity's voice slithered around her, poisonously sweet. It seemed to seep into her skin, promising solace, fellowship. Jessica closed her eyes tightly, shaking her head, willing the creaturesque grip to slacken. She couldn't succumb, her father needed her. Suddenly, a burst of sound shattered the silence. A sharp, desperate cry echoed through the void. "Jessica!" The voice was unmistakable, strained and filled with anguish. It was her father's voice. The shadows flickered back, recoiling as if the name held a power over them. "Dad," she whispered, the sound trembling on her lips. With renewed urgency, she took a step toward the direction of the voice, but the shadows shifted, their grip tightening around her ankles, their tug strong and insistent. "No, you can't leave," they hissed, the chorus blending into a horrid symphony that filled the dark air with anguish. It was no longer just a voice that urged her back, it was the collective longing of each wretched soul entwined within the darkness. They were terrified she might escape. Panic surged again. Jessica felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her, heavy as stone. The dark knew how to manipulate fear, how to twist hope into a noose. "If you abandon him," the haunting voice echoed again, "you will never feel alone. Shut up," she shouted, the scream ripping from her throat as she fought against the suffocating tendrils. She struggled, feeling them slicing through her resolve like a knife. Then, her father's cry pierced her thoughts once more, igniting a flicker of courage. The shadows screeched as she tore her gaze from their shapeless forms and plunged deeper into the blackness, summoning every ounce of strength. She stumbled blindly, stretching out her hands to touch the damp walls, praying for even the smallest sign of light or hope. "I will find you," she yelled, more for herself than anyone else. Her footsteps echoed, reverberating through the abyss, drowning out the whispers that clawed at her sanity. The cries of her father began to lead her through the darkness like a beacon, illuminating her desperate path. Each shout was getting closer, more urgent, and Jessica's spirit soared. But then it happened. A sharp pain pierced her foot as she stepped on something jagged glass. The agony shot through her, and she collapsed onto the cold ground. She gasped, biting her lip to stifle the cries that threatened to escape. The pain was blinding. Darkness surged, swallowing her, wrapping tightly around her like spoiling vines, trying to pull her back into the depths. "Stay with us," it howled, the creatures surrounding her, their voices now a cacophony of threats and promises. "No!" Jessica hobbled back to her feet, pushing through the sickening despair. I will not lose him." She limped forward, pushing against the dark, suffocating embrace with everything she had left. In that moment, she felt a flicker inside her, an ember of hope barely ignited but alive. As she forged ahead, an oppressive shadow opened up, revealing a narrow path lit by an eerie glow at the end. She had to follow that light, had to reach it before it dimmed forever. But at that moment, she heard it, the soft sound of laughter, chilling and mocking, echoing from all around her. The shadows swirled in unison, intensifying the light ahead.
"He not here," they taunted. "He won't be waiting for you." Jessica froze, dread washing over her. What if they were right? What if the darkness had consumed her father too?
As despair clenched at her heart, the flickering light danced before her, beckoning.
Could it be an exit? A trap?
The choice hung heavy, just like the breath that caught in her throat.
Would she find her father on the other side, or was she walking straight into a new nightmare? Each second felt eternal as a surge of voices rose up around her. "Join us, Jessica, abandon him, and you shall find peace." Forever she edged closer to the gleaming portal, fear and desperation battling within her. It was now or never. What awaited her beyond that threshold? Would she find salvation, or was she about to lose herself completely? The shadows curled tighter, breathing against her neck. Breathless, Jessica lunged forward, heart racing, determined to plunge into the light, but what awaited her might unleash a new terror. And as she crossed into the glow, the truth surged forth, ready to unveil itself in the heart of nightmares. The moment Jessica stepped into the light, her senses were overwhelmed. It was not the warm embrace she had hoped for, but a blistering brightness that stung her eyes. The shadows recoiled behind her, whispering in panicked tones, their words now distant. As her vision adjusted, she found herself in a vast, cavernous space. Crumbling stone walls loomed around her, dripping with moisture, making everything feel alive. The air surged with an acrid smell of decay and burning, a powerful reminder that this was no sanctuary. "Dad!" she cried, scanning the eerie surroundings. But no response echoed back. Just the unsettling silence, coupled with the ever-present threat of the shadows lurking in the perimeter. They hissed and growled, their fury more palpable than before, outraged by her audacity to break through their protective veil. Turning, she spotted a shadowy figure at the far end of the cavern, illuminated by a sickly, flickering torch. It swayed in the draft, casting dancing shadows that twisted together, creating shapes that seemed alive. "Help me!" she shouted, her voice a mix of desperation and fear. The figure turned towards her, and her heart sank. It was a man, but his eyes glimmered with a strange light, one that made her skin crawl. He wore what appeared to be remnants of torn cloth, his features gaunt and worn. Despite its vacant stare, a twisted smile spread across his face. "You shouldn't have come here, Jessica. Who are you?" She stepped back, the weight of dread anchoring her feet. "I'm just an echo of what was once," he replied, his hand gesturing widely, encompassing the cavern. "Your father, he didn't heed the warnings. A path chosen leads to many ends. And you? You're but another lost soul in this dance. Where is he?" Panic clawed at her throat as she edged closer, the flickering light casting an unsettling glow across his ashen skin. "Do you truly believe you can save him?" he mocked, stepping forward. The shadows behind him writhed at his beckoning. "No one leaves this place, love. If you think you can escape, you will discover just how deep the darkness runs." Suddenly, the laughter erupted again, richer and more sinister, vibrating off the stone walls. The shadows laughed too, steeped in malice, consuming the air around her. They whispered her deepest fears, each word like a thorn piercing her resolve. "Listen to them, love, they know the truth. Your father made his choice, sacrificed his hope for the comfort of the abyss. It's the only way to feel alive." The echoing figure stretched his arms as if to beckon her closer. "No. I refuse to believe that." Anger surged through her. "He wouldn't give up on me like that. Is it giving up, or finding peace?" His voice was syrupy, thick with temptation. "What if the shadows can give more than they take? What if embracing the darkness unlocks wonders you couldn't fathom?" Jessica shook her head, moving sideways, searching for an exit, but the oppressive walls seemed to close in on her. She felt their icy fingers crawling over her skin. "You're lying." The laughter intensified, and with it came an echo of her father's voice. "Jessica! Help!" Her heart pounded as she turned to face the shadows.
They pulsated with energy, beckoning and pushing her in every direction. Despair washed over her like a tide, pulling her into the depths. Was she truly alone in this fight? Could she resist the alluring call of the dark, or was surrendering the only option left? The shadows seemed to reach out, whispering secrets, exposing her vulnerabilities, revealing routes to escape or to drown forever in their embrace. Consider what I offer. The darkness can be your ally, the figure taunted from the edge, his smile twisting, melting into the shadows behind him. Suddenly, the ground beneath Jessica shook, sending a ripple of fear through her. The realization struck time was slipping through her fingers. She needed to make her choice, and fast, before the shadows consumed everything she loved. Could she save her father, or was she destined to join the very darkness she fought against? With a rush of adrenaline, Jessica launched herself back towards the doorway of shadows, the uncertain path racing beneath her feet. What awaited her on the other side? Would she find her father, or had she unwittingly become a part of the darkness herself? As she crossed the threshold, a new realm unfurled before her, dragging her deeper into the unknown. Jessica stumbled into a wild world tangled with shadows and whispers. The air crackled with an electric tension as she struggled to orient herself. Each step seemed heavier, thicker, as if the darkness wrapped around her like chains, dragging her back from progress. "Dad!" she shouted, voice trembling with ache and urgency. She fought against the oppressive stillness, but only her heart echoed back. Panic clawed at her throat as flashes of memories taunted her, her father's laughter, his warm embrace, the stories they shared. They were fading, slipping between her fingers like grains of sand. With every heartbeat, the shadows twisted closer, as if sensing her vulnerability. "You don't need to resist anymore," they crooned softly, enticingly. "Join us, find peace." "No!" she gasped, shaking her head firmly, eyes scanning the dark corners. She thought of her father's warnings, his protective hand that had always been there, guiding her along. The cold fingers of the shadows reached out, but she took a deep breath, summoning the flickering glow they feared so much, the light of determination, of family, of truth. Without knowing where she was going, she pushed forward, the glow from her inner courage igniting with every breath. Suddenly, through a murky haze, she caught a glimpse of familiar silhouette, her father, standing at the heart of the shadows. A gasp escaped her as she rushed toward him, every instinct screaming for her to break through the dark. "Jessica!" His voice cut through her fear, a lifeline in the chaos. "Keep moving. They're trying to hold you back." As she ran, the shadows howled, their whispers becoming frantic. "You'll lose him," they warned, their voices turning rich with malice. "You'll be all alone." But she had to trust. Their words were meant to ensnare, not to guide. "I won't believe you," she screamed into the void, bolstered by her resolve. She leaped towards her father, nearly colliding with him as the shadows convulsed, shrieking and thrashing, angry at her defiance. He was solid, real, and filled with warmth, everything that kept her anchored to the surface. "Jessica!" His eyes flashed with relief and fear as he took her shoulders, pulling her close. "We have to break through together. Don't let them pull you apart." The shadows lashed out, elongating, clawing, but Jessica drew strength from her father. "I'm right here." They dared to move together, slowly inching toward the fading light that flickered at the end of a tunnel formed by swirling black. As they took each step, the whispers crescendoed, becoming a cacophony of anguish. "You can't escape this, you belong to us." "No!" Jessica shouted, her voice raw with conviction, with love. "We choose to leave." At that moment, they burst free into blinding light. It embraced them, a fierce caress, washing over the degradation of the darkness like cleansing fire. In one heart-stopping instant, the shadows dissolved behind them, an explosion of haunting whispers that drifted into the night. They collapsed onto solid ground, panting, the brightness around them flickering gently as if embers dying after a blaze. Jessica looked around, wide-eyed. They were in an empty room, dust motes swirled lazily in the sunlight streaming through the narrow windows. It felt like an eternity since she had seen the sun. The air was fresh, full of possibility rather than dread. Her father sank to his knees, shaking, overwhelmed with relief. I thought I lost you." Tears glistened in his eyes as he clasped her shoulders tightly, grounding them both. "I won't leave you again," she vowed, determination flooding her veins. "We're stronger together." He nodded, a smile breaking through the remnants of fear the bond they had forged with their struggle now renewed. Together, they had faced the abyss and emerged on the other side, forever changed but whole. As they stood in the warm light, Jessica felt the weight of Willow Creek's darkness lifting, leaving only echoes of what had once been. The families trapped in their shadows could find their way to freedom too, she had faith in that truth. And maybe, just maybe, she could help them do it. Hope burned brightly in her chest as she squeezed her father's hand, ready to explore a future unburdened by those sinister secrets. But as they stepped out of that room into the vibrant world beyond, she couldn't shake the lingering sensation the shadows may have retreated for now, but they would never truly be gone. Not until each soul trapped within the darkness found their way into the light. "Let us go home," she whispered, and her father nodded, resolute. Together, they would start anew. Now, it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And if you enjoyed this conclusion, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who really need to see it. Don't wait even one more second. This is the moment to show your support. Remember, only true fans understand the importance of lifting up this channel through your amazing actions.